They tell you the 2008 crash was an accident, a once-in-a-lifetime lapse in judgment by a few greedy bankers. They tell you the inflation of 2026 is just a transitory byproduct of bad luck in supply chains. But the truth is far more unsettling. The trap currently being sprung was set 332 years ago, and you are the first generation to see the gears finally lock into place. Welcome to the greatest heist in human history. This isn't just a story about money, it's a story about the ownership of time itself. To understand why your bank account feels like a leaking bucket today, the path leads back to a candlelit room in London in the year 1694. King William III was a man in desperate straits. A grueling, endless war with France had drained the royal coffers to the floor. The British Navy was paralysed, the soldiers were unpaid, and the monarchy was on the verge of collapse. The king didn't just need gold, he needed a miracle. And as history shows, when kings are desperate, shadowy men appear with solutions. A group of private lenders led by William Paterson approached the throne. They would give the king £1.2 million in gold to win his war. But the gold wasn't the goal. In exchange, the king gave them a royal charter, the power to print the nation's money and lend it back to the government at interest. This was the 0 hour. For the first time, a private company owned the currency. The king got his ships, the bankers got the keys to the kingdom. The logic was insane. The government gave away the power to create money, only to borrow it back from a private board of directors. This turned money into a rolling subscription. Every modern dollar or pound is just a receipt for a debt that can never be paid off. This was the birth of seigniorage, the power to manufacture value out of thin air. This isn't a modern economy. It is the compounding interest of a dead man's war. Underneath it all lies one fundamental truth. The 1694 system established a world where money is debt. In this architecture, every modern dollar, pound, or yen in circulation was lent into existence. Think of it like a runaway credit card. To pay off the interest on the first card, the government has to open a second card. To pay off those two, they open a third. If every debt on earth were paid back tomorrow, there would be no money left. The system doesn't just have debt, the system is debt. The system isn't broken, it is working exactly as designed. It is a mathematical loop that requires constant exponential expansion just to stay alive. But here is the darker ritual. Once the bankers had the king's gold in their vault, they realized a secret. Not everyone asks for their gold at the same time. So, for every 1 bar of gold they actually held, they printed 10 pieces of paper and lent those out too. This was the birth of fractional reserve banking. It was a magic trick where they charged interest on money that didn't exist. They weren't lending wealth, they were lending promises and harvesting real labor in return. Most historians miss the blood clause of 1694. King William III didn't just borrow money, he sold the right to create it. That £1.2 million loan, it was created out of thin air. The bankers lent the king promises to pay and charged him 8% interest on money that didn't exist. This was not a temporary loan, it was a perpetual receipt, a debt designed to be unpayable, ensuring the 1694 loop would never end. You are living in the 332nd year of a private collection agency's business plan. Because the interest on the initial loan can only be paid with more loans, the debt can never be settled. It must be rolled over generation after generation. This model was so efficient at draining the wealth of the public that it became the blueprint for the world. In 1913, the United States replicated the 1694 model. The Federal Reserve Act handed the power to create the nation's currency to a private consortium of banks. The language was different, the century was different, but the architecture was identical. Private creation of public currency, lent at interest, designed to be unpayable. When the Fed prints today, they aren't solving a crisis. They are continuing a 300-year-old extraction mechanism. You were on a treadmill that was set to a slow walk in the 17th century, but today that treadmill is hitting its terminal velocity. The math doesn't lie. In 2026, the United States is adding $1 trillion of debt every 100 days. This isn't just government spending. This is the 1694 algorithm hitting its terminal phase. We aren't just paying for a budget, we are paying the interest on a 300-year-old heist that has finally run out of runway. The interest on the national debt now exceeds the entire defense budget. This is the rupture. Look at the global debt ticker. Most people see a number and feel a vague sense of dread. They don't see the gears. We have reached the mathematical end of the graph. In 2008, they simply patched the hole with more debt. They printed the solution to a printing problem. Now, the collateral is gone. In the old world, debt was backed by hard assets, land or gold. Today, the system is backed by nothing but faith, and that faith is evaporating. We are witnessing the great debasement. When central banks print at infinity to keep the engine from seizing, they are harvesting your life. This is why you work harder, but fall further behind. Your labor and your savings are being sucked into the black hole of a 300-year-old interest payment. But here's what the history books won't tell you about currency resets. They don't announce themselves. They reveal themselves through pattern shifts. Pattern recognition. If you were a German citizen in 1913, you would have seen 3 signals before the hyperinflation erased generational wealth. Signal 1. Central banks accumulating gold while telling the public gold is obsolete. Signal 2. Currency creation accelerating beyond any peacetime precedent. Signal 3. The emergence of alternative systems, parallel currencies, and programmable infrastructure. Today, we see the same pattern. While the public is told gold is a relic, central banks are hoarding physical bullion at rates not seen since the 1940s. Currency creation has entered exponential territory. The trillion-dollar milestones that once took years now pass in months. And the emergence of programmable currency infrastructure, central bank digital currencies, not as an improvement, but as a replacement. The gatekeepers of the 1694 ledger know the paper receipt system is reaching its end. To keep the ritual alive, they need programmable currency, money with rules attached, that allow them to turn your ability to spend on or off at the push of a button. It is the 1694 ledger updated for the 21st century, same control mechanism, different substrate. The 1694 lien was signed in secret by men who understood the alchemy of power. The 2026 lien will be signed in plain sight by anyone who trades convenience for agency. The pattern doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. If you were German in 1913, you had 9 years to recognize the pattern before Weimar hyperinflation erased generational wealth. If you were American in 1971, you had 2 years to understand Nixon closing the gold window before inflation consumed a decade. In 2026, we don't know how much time the transition window remains open, but the pattern is visible. The gears are exposed. The question isn't whether the crash is coming. The crash is already here, hidden behind the veil of inflation. Will you be a victim of the pattern, or will you recognize it? The 1694 ritual ends when you choose to see the gears. What was invisible for 3 centuries is now laid bare. This investigation continues in asset number 3, the biofinancial singularity, where we trace what the architects are collateralizing next. It's not your land, it's not your labor, it's your pulse.